if the other party has the deeper connection, and while you feel connected, you also aren't as emotionally attached, so you can still use your brain, if you will.
See, I think that's something maybe you should talk about in therapy.
You think I should talk about it?
Yeah, I think that sounds crazy.
You think that sounds crazy?
Well, kind of, because you're saying you don't want to be too emotionally connected.
Welcome back to the podcast. This episode is actually one I recorded about a year ago with a close friend of mine. He currently lives in China, teaching English to Chinese students. And while he was in town, I had him come on and we talked about love and relationships and dating in China versus dating in the United States. This is when I had a different concept for a podcast that was focused more on relationships and mental health. So this is also heavily edited. We probably talked for 2 or 3 hours, and this is edited down to about 35 to 38 minutes. Hope you enjoy. I have a couple more that I may pull from back in that time period. So here it is.
Do you want to be married?
I do want to be married. I'm thinking maybe 3 or 4 years down the road.
I think the problem with that is you shouldn't choose a time. What if marriage for you is 10 years down the road or 15 years down the road?
Oh, well, I mean, that's 10 or 15 years down the road is not something that it's not my ideal time frame.
Well, sure, but I think that's why people end up getting married.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe sooner than they should have, because they go, I gotta have 3 kids by the time I'm 26, and I need to have that perfect house by the time. Like, they have the timeline. Everyone knows the timeline. I've got the timeline.
Yeah,
but that I think rushes you into something that maybe you shouldn't be doing. So when you think about dating, when you think about trying to find the person you want to marry, how do you approach that?
Well, let me say something real quick.
No, you can't.
It doesn't have to be something that you rush through. I mean, well, when I think about, I want to be married by this age and have this many kids, I mean, to me, that's goal setting. And can you achieve that? You can, but you have to try.
It's not like a math problem, though, where there's just you start it and there's a solution. I mean,
it really is, though, kind of like a math problem, though. Like if you want to get married at, say, 32,
okay,
you don't have to be like, I'm 32. Whoever I meet, tomorrow is the woman that I'm going to be married to, It's a numbers game. So you got to start when you're like 24, 25, just like meeting as many women as you can. And then at some point in time, the numbers will work out for you, and you will meet, a woman that you want to marry. And you'll probably meet her before you even turn, 32 or whatever age you want to be married at.
Yeah, but are you open to the idea that you might not?
Yeah. I mean,
or are you just like, this is the way it's going to be? Like, do you have your mind set on that, where it's like, yeah, by the time I'm this age, I'm going to be married?
I mean, it doesn't have to be something that's set in stone. You could be like, well, I'm 32. I'm supposed to be married by now, but you know what? Now I'm going to switch it to 33.
I have a feeling your number is 32.
Yeah, it is 32. It is, yeah. It is. I think 32 is
What's so great about 32? That's a weird number.
Is there to me it feels like it's not too old and not too young. When a woman looks at you, she wants to know what your potential is. And I think at 32, you're at a point where your potential is really showing, and you may have actually achieved a lot of things, but you're not to a point where it's obvious that you don't have any potential. Do you know what I mean?
That's how most women look at me. He's got zero potential. I've decided. Just kidding.
That's not true.
They see a little bit. You're not a woman.
What potential do they see, Jay? What do they see when they look at you?
In me?
Yeah.
What do you mean for potential, though? Potential in what? Just in life?
I mean,
what I can achieve?
Exactly. Yeah, what you can achieve, the potential for success.
I think that depends. It depends on how well they know me.
Mm-hmm.
I think in the beginning, if I go out on a date, then they see someone who's, pretty nice. I do a pretty good job of listening, and I've pride myself on having the ability to have a conversation with most people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think in the beginning, they're just like, oh, it's a nice guy. He's got a job. But then I think if you get to know me better, then you see that I'm really I'm driven, and I'm passionate about a lot of different things. So I'm somebody that's like trying to achieve something, but that also doesn't necessarily go well for a relationship.
Why is that?
Because I think it depends on who I'm talking to, but there are some women that, you know, their goal, like my mom's goal, she's told me that she just wanted to get married and have kids. Like that was her goal. She wanted to have kids, which is great because that's why I'm here.
That's what she did. She succeeded at
she
her
did
goal.
it. That's what she wanted. I think she would have liked to be in a happier marriage. You know, that hurt. I mean, my parents got divorced when I was like 20, and when I look at it, it wasn't the best marriage, but
you've turned out all right.
Yeah, it turned out all right.
Yeah.
But for some women, that's all they want. Especially like I'm 30 now, and so more of the women that I meet, I think that's what they're looking for, and they're looking to do that fairly quickly.
Yeah, right, fast.
Yeah. And so, but for me, I need someone who is maybe driven in the same way, where they just want to achieve things and not necessarily looking to have kids right now, and they understand my brain in a way.
Jay, what are you driven to do?
What am I driven to do? Like career-wise?
Yeah.
I just want to make things. That's what I found out recently, that I can get along, I think, with most people, or like find common ground, find things that we have that we can relate
about.
Yeah. But when I look at myself being in like a long-term relationship, like a marriage, I think it's got to be with somebody who is sort of on the same path in a way, you know? I just have a creative brain. Like 90% of my day involves creativity in some way.
Mm-hmm. Like I can tell. I live in the studio, and
so I have a full-time job, and then I come home, and right now we're recording a podcast, which is also creative. Or last night I was building something. It's like my whole life is wrapped around that. Not because I feel like I'm obligated to. It's because that's how I live my life. That's what I'm most interested in. And in the past, when I've been in certain relationships, I feel like I've gotten away from that, just because maybe the person I'm with doesn't necessarily live that life. Like they have other things. And the benefit of that is I get to learn about new things and new people and do different things. But I always come back, you know, when I get out of a relationship, I always come back to this stuff, and I feel energized in a way that I may have not felt while I was in the relationship, because this is the stuff that gets me excited. So that's what's led me to believe that I need to find a partner who's maybe as excited about that stuff as I am, or as involved in it as I am, because I think we'll always have like an understanding of each other and what we're trying to do, instead of me trying to explain to somebody, this is why my brain works this way, this is why I like to do this, because that can be exhausting. So did that answer the question? I feel like I was all over the place.
No, that answered the question. Yeah.
Okay. I
mean, so how are you going to solve that problem?
I mean, dating.
Right. I mean, but where do you go to date?
Oh, it depends. I'm trying to branch out. It's just hard. Like I don't know that my ideal woman is like someone in a bar or a club, so that already sort of. Right,
but on the other hand, she potentially could be.
No, it's true. Like I feel like you do got to be just open to whoever, and that's a problem for everybody, because everyone's got like a list in a way, right? You have this list in your mind of what you need in somebody, and it's hard to be open to new possibilities when you're like, I want somebody who is this, and this, and this.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong about having a list of qualities that you want. You know, you just have to be realistic about it and know that the person you end up with may not have all of those qualities.
I know, you just can't be too rigid with it.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You can't be
it's
too
just hard
rigid
to do,
with
it. I think that's common now, especially when like dating at this point is like shopping. You know, you get online, you're like, all right, I'm looking for somebody who's blonde, about 5'5", and you just like put on all the settings, and you go, all right, how many you got for me? You know, and by doing that, by putting those filters on there, you just immediately eliminate all these other people who may be like an inch taller, or like all these women that may be like perfect for you, but you don't even see them because you filtered them out from the beginning.
Right, and you shouldn't filter them out, that way. Maybe the blonde doesn't have the master's degree that you want, your potential wife to have, but the brunette does, you know what I mean? So
yeah.
You shouldn't filter out, all the brunettes just for the blondes, or you shouldn't filter out all the master degrees and not have the non-master degrees in there, because you may find a better balance in one group than you didn't find in the other.
I would never do that because I have 2 associate's degrees, so I don't filter out anybody with their education because I can't.
Mm-hmm. Hey, you always could though, and you actually possibly you might find that you can, even though you only have 2 associate's degree, mentally
I'm an idiot.
You're not an idiot. You mentally you connect better with a woman that has maybe a bachelor's or a master's degree than you would with one that has an associate's or nothing.
I'm comfortable with my education.
Mm-hmm.
But the last girl I dated, she had a master's, and my favorite thing to do is like I only have like an associate's degree, right?
Yeah.
Just like to make fun of myself. I'm not like on your level. Or if I said something stupid, I'd be like, well, I only went to community college, so I'm an idiot.
But when you did that, did she find that
funny?
Funny, yeah.
Of course, because it's sarcasm.
Mm-hmm.
I don't actually think I'm an idiot.
Right, but I mean, maybe in her mind she is, because I mean, I think people who go for just something like an associate's, maybe there's a bit of I don't know, a thinking around them,
Oh, like so you're asking if I was judged based on that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh no.
Okay.
Not in that instance. I've felt that before though.
In what instance did you feel that?
I don't know. Like I don't have a specific thing in mind. I just know I brought it up before and felt like, oh, they probably think I'm just lazy.
Yeah.
You were talking about it some before. Like, how's dating different here than it is in China?
It's in China. It's both easier and more difficult.
Are you like a novelty there though, in a way?
No, I wouldn't. I don't feel like I'm a novelty.
I don't know if that's the best word to use, but I mean, like,
I think that's. I understand what you mean when you say that. No, I don't feel like a novelty actually. If I go out into the countryside, I'm definitely a novelty. But if I'm in the inner cities, I'm not a novelty at all. I'm just like, oh, there's another white guy. So what?
Yeah, but how has dating there changed your view, just on dating and maybe on marriage? Like, are you looking for different things now after you've dated in China?
Am I looking?
Do you expect different things when you because you said, okay, 32, you're 29 now?
Yeah, 29.
So 3 years. Do you have different requirements now or things you think you want in your wife in 3 years? Man, that'd be crazy if I'm going to your wedding in 3 years. That'd be crazy.
Let's give it 4 years.
All right, let's give it 4 years. 3 years. Wow. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, there are things that I look for that are different. Being in China, I found that I feel better when I'm around a woman that speaks English. I can speak Chinese myself at like an intermediate level, but
show off.
And even in conversations in China, I can talk and understand and we can communicate with one another. But it can never really get onto a deeper level. And I always have to think a whole lot when I'm having the conversation. And so it just completely takes away from the experience I have, when I'm like dating a woman or just talking to her. So for me now, I feel like I need a woman that speaks English. She can speak Chinese too, but she has to speak a good amount of English. And then also in China, I found that, or at least I feel that a lot of women, they don't, they're not driven. They're not driven to be successful,
Is that because, like, how important are, like, gender roles there?
Oh, they're important.
Are they?
Yeah.
And everyone kind of follows them?
Yeah.
So if you were to marry a woman in China,
mm-hmm.
what would that look like? especially if it's a like traditional Chinese woman.
You mean like what would the wedding be like?
No. What would that marriage look like?
This is what the marriage would look like. I would go to work. She would go to work. Our children would go to the grandparents, and they would be taken care of by the grandparents while we were at work. I would come home with the bacon. I'd come home with the bacon.
You bring bacon home every day.
I bring the bacon home every day.
You're a good husband.
And I would give the bacon to her. And she would have the bacon and the ham, and she would decide what to do with it. Here is a little bit of bacon. You can go out and do something with it. You can go and have a couple of drinks with your friend, or you can go and have a couple of smokes with your friend, something like that. I don't smoke, by the way, but in China it's quite popular, so that's the example that I used. But that's the area that I'm in China.
The smoking area?
Well, I mean, all of China smokes. It's a real chimney over there. But in the area in the southwest of China, the women play a bigger role. Actually, they're more aggressive, and they're kind of the leaders within the family, more so than I would say the men are, especially when it comes to money. But in the northern part of China, the men are usually the leaders, and they would handle the money issues, and then the woman would kind of follow. And in that aspect, it kind of makes me a little hesitant about dating and potentially marrying a woman in the southwest part of China, because that's not really the kind of marriage that I want.
Yeah, what kind of marriage do you want? Like, what does a happy marriage look like for you? Like, who are you with? What's your list? Give me the list.
I mean, for me, a happy marriage is meet a woman that are friends with each other. Also, she meets some of the ideals that I want in a woman, and also she respects me and she follows my lead, and that's kind of what I want in a marriage.
That's it?
I guess I could say a couple more things.
That's all you want?
I have the things that I am driven to achieve, and then she kind of mirrors me on those, and she helps me to achieve those sort of things. Yeah.
So.
And she's happy to do that.
So you're looking for someone who's maybe a little less driven and is more along for the ride?
No, she doesn't have to be less driven. She doesn't have to be.
But how important is a partnership? And do you want to have your separate thing though?
What do you mean by separate thing?
Like what I was talking about.
A little something on the side.
No, what I was talking about before. Like where I'm looking for somebody who's maybe a partner in creativity in a way, right? Where we maybe have a lot of stuff in common, where I don't necessarily lead a separate life. Like we almost become one. At least I think that's what I'm looking for. But you're saying you'll have your thing that you were driven to do, and she's just supporting that. So she doesn't necessarily do it. It's not necessarily her goal.
No, I mean it will be her goal. That's why she's like encouraging me and helping me along to do that. The main thing is what we're both interested in is the family goals that we have. Maybe we want to bring home, I don't know, 60 or 70,000, at the end of the year, and we want to use that to do renovations on the house or go on a vacation. And so she supports me in achieving that family goal that we have.
How important is having hobbies in common though, or mutual interests, taste in movies, taste in music, like all the things that make you up? Like, how important is it to be compatible in those ways, or is it just like the big things? Are you just looking for the big things, big picture?
The big picture is important, and I guess it's something I've also kind of run into in China. Is I like a woman that's kind of analytical, and she likes to kind of analyze the world a little bit. But if I met a woman that wasn't like that, as long as we felt that we were compatible and we could relate or, learn to, relate or become compassionate towards each other's interests, I think that would be fine too. I think when you meet a woman that works for you, you just like you feel it and you know it.
But do you see yourself staying with somebody for 40 years?
I see myself staying with someone for 50 years. That's the goal, is to be together for life.
Do you worry about that though?
Do I worry about it?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, sometimes I do worry about it. But I think in terms of having that happen, that you stay together for life, a lot of times that's just a responsibility that I have to take upon myself.
To stay with somebody for life?
Yeah. I mean, it's the same with like a friendship, right? I mean, you can't just like set it and forget it. This isn't some TV advertisement.
Yeah, you have to record podcasts together. That's like
exactly. Yeah. And you have to be active in the friendship or the relationship.
Yeah, but not in the same way though. Like I cannot see you for months, and when I see you again, we're still like, I still feel really close. I don't feel like it's been that long, right? Like you feel that too. But in a marriage, I feel like you have to be on top of it all the time.
Well, yeah.
Like if you're gone for a few months, I don't worry that I'm not gonna be your friend anymore. I just think maybe we won't be as close for that period, or I won't know his day to day.
Right, and you have to catch up on all that stuff.
Yeah, but I think for a marriage, you got to be in it, and you got to stay in it, and you got to want to be in it, and like the idea of doing that for the rest of my life, and don't get me wrong, I want that, and I'm hopeful for that, but it also seems almost impossible. Not impossible. Well, I mean, I don't want to use that word.
You look at a lot of men in life, like Brad Pitt. He just got divorced too.
Yeah, but I can't use celebrities as an example, because the scrutiny that's on their relationship, and you're just living in the public eye all the time. That actually does make it impossible, I think, to have a lifelong relationship. You just can't live a normal life.
But there's a lot of celebrities who have. True,
Tom Hanks.
Yeah. Oh, really?
I think he's been married for like 25, 30 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but he's one of the few.
Yeah. I mean, so yeah, it's definitely possible. You just have to be active. I think a lot of guys, they become complacent in their marriage.
Sure. Well, don't just say guys.
A lot of women too.
Yeah.
Women, they get married and they think, I just got married. The rest of our lives together are going to be better and better and better and better.
Yeah, but you're right. Only if you work on it.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know, but I'm not. I believe it's possible. I don't think, for me, that's not the issue. But I want to know: is it possible to do that and also be happy?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if that's a relationship that you want, and you want it to be for life,
right? But I think certain people have those relationships and then they stay in it because they're like supposed to stay in it, and they've committed to it, but not necessarily because it's the person they want to be with or should be with or are most compatible with. They're just like, well, we got in it, so we got to stay in it.
Right, but that's a completely different topic, though. You know what I mean? I mean, if it's the woman that you want and you really love her and you want to stay with her, you're gonna do whatever you need to make sure that marriage works. And a lot of guys, regardless of it, if whether that's the woman that they want to be with for the rest of their life or it's a woman that they settled for, they don't put in the work needed. And it's something you have to do as soon as you start dating. You have to like set the groundwork for how you want the relationship to be.
Sure.
Because if you don't, somewhere 6 months or maybe 10 years down the line, you're going to say, how did this happen? How did I let my relationship get out of whack? And it's because, you didn't lay the groundwork in the beginning.
I think the worst marriages, or it's like they're long-term relationships, and maybe they stay together forever. But so you have that person there, but you end up being more lonely because you don't actually want to be there. So you feel trapped, more trapped.
Right, and I think those are the people that settled for less. Because then
maybe.
they always look at the greener pasture, and they say, why did I end up with this kind of grass? I should have had the Bermuda. I should have went for the Bermuda grass, but I got fearful, or I wanted to rush through things, and I settled for less and ended up where I ended up.
There's this great video from I don't remember if I sent it to you or not, but you know the School of Life? It's a YouTube channel.
I don't know it.
They have awesome videos, and a lot of it's about self-help, and then from the videos have come books. I think it's supposed to be a new approach to self-help, and the videos they put out are awesome, but there's one called Why You'll Marry the Wrong Person, and every new person I used to date, I would always show them that video for different reasons, but I think one of them because I wanted somebody else who would appreciate that kind of content. But in the video, they talk about one of the reasons you'll marry the wrong person, or most people will marry the wrong person, is because we don't even know ourselves. And the questions we ask each other on first dates are not the questions we should be asking. And so you end up with somebody you're not really compatible with because you weren't even like dating in the right way. But he was saying what we should be asking each other on a first date is like not what music you're interested in, what do you do for fun. It's like what makes you crazy. Like what are the things about you that are gonna 10 years from now annoy me? Like what are your issues? And I think that's true. That's the stuff nobody wants to talk about. You just want to believe that this person is like, oh, they're the best. I'm really attracted to them. We seem to have a lot in common. But then those little details, those little intricacies that everyone has, that's the stuff we should be learning about.
I agree with that. People don't like to try to find out those very, very deep things.
Yeah.
People like to stay on a shallower level.
Yeah, sometimes that's an entire marriage.
Yeah.
There's this other test. It's a 36 question thing that you're supposed to do with. Well, it doesn't have to be with someone you're in a relationship with, but it was a study or an article that was written. I forgot what year, but the idea was that you could fall in love with anybody. It's sort of an experiment, and it's a 36 question test that you take with somebody, and you trade off. You both answer the question, but you trade off asking it, and they become increasingly, invasive in a way. I mean, it's like real deep stuff by the end, like your fears and when's the last time you cried and like all these great things. So it starts off more surface level and then gets into the deep stuff. You go through all 36 questions, and at the very end, you look into each other's eyes. You lock eyes for, I think, 4 minutes. Can't say a word. No, I don't think any music or anything. You just look into each other's eye for 4 minutes, and then so you're supposed to be able to do that. And like they say love, but I think it's more that you can make a connection with anybody, which I believe that.
Yeah, I would believe that too. But I'm kind of looking at it from a different perspective. Yes, you do want the emotional closeness to happen, or the closeness in general to happen. But I think it's better if the person you're talking to feels closer to you than say you feel to them, because that closeness is going to bring a lot of emotions. And in any relationship, I think it's kind of better if the other person has more emotion than you do.
I don't think it makes any sense at all.
It does make sense though, because if you're thinking with your...
It sounds very one-sided.
If you're thinking... Let me finish. If you're thinking with your emotions, you can actually do a lot of stupid things, or maybe something needy or something like that. And so I think it's a lot better if the other party has more emotion than you have, because then you can kind of rationalize situations better. Like for an example, maybe you asked her 36 questions. She asked you 36 questions. Now you both feel very connected to each other.
Yeah.
But you're like, I'm going to call her every night. We had that emotional connection. I'm going to call her every single night. And I don't think that kind of response to the situation is particularly good.
Yeah, but see,
because it can kind of ruin that deep connection that you have. So I think it's a lot better if the other party has the deeper connection, and while you feel connected, you also aren't as emotionally attached, so you can still use your brain, if you will.
See, I think that's something maybe you should talk about in therapy.
You think I should talk about it?
Yeah, I think that sounds crazy.
You think that sounds crazy?
Well, kind of, because you're saying you don't want to be too emotionally connected. And for one thing, I don't think that's something you control. You either feel that connection or you don't.
I didn't say that I don't want to feel emotionally connected.
Yeah, but you basically said you're holding back. You're like, I don't want to feel too connected.
I do want to feel connected, but I want it to be a paced connection.
But you don't control that.
But I try to control that.
But you can't. Like, if you're talking about emotions and attraction and stuff like that, you don't control it. The only way you control that is just to stay away from it. But that's not healthy.
I think in certain situations you can't control it. Like love at first sight kind of things, or just like
lust at first sight.
Lust at first sight. Sometimes you have a conversation and you just get caught off guard, and the next thing you know, you're just like, boom, all these emotions are there. But I mean, if you're going in with the context of, I'm going to ask these 36 questions, then, I feel like you are trying to control the situation. And if you're going to control the situation, I think it's better to have them feel more emotional towards you, and you being able to have your emotions come on slowly, at a slower rate.
I just disagree. I think somebody's going to feel more connected to you because you give some of yourself also. I think that's part of the reason somebody feels connected.
Right, and you can, give a part of yourself. She says, when I was a little kid, I really enjoyed holding in my poop. And you're like, when I was a little kid, I enjoyed pooping in my diaper, and they're like, we're like
feel so
same.
Connected.
Yeah.
Is this from a conversation you actually
had? No, I haven't had that. But I'm saying, you can still relate. You can still relate.
Yeah, but it still sounds to me like you're talking about trying to control your level of emotion and attraction by holding back.
Right, but isn't that kind of, what we do anyways? We always, you said so yourself, right? You, and I think in a different conversation that you want to control the situation, right?
Sure, that part of that is, and we haven't talked about it in this conversation yet, but just like my issues with obsessive compulsive disorder and like needing to feel in control of thoughts, control of different things. Like, I don't think that's necessarily normal. Like, I shouldn't need to feel in control. And when it comes to relationships, I think part of what is healthy is being able to let go and just let whatever's going to happen. And I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum, is if I'm having a conversation with somebody and I'm trying to build a connection, if I don't feel like I'm in it, and if I feel like I can easily back away and I'm not feeling enough, for me that's a red flag. That's not like, all right, I'm in control here. That's more like, I should probably date somebody else. But it sounds to me like that's what you want. You want to be able to say, okay.
Yeah, well, yeah, I want to.
Clear-headed here. To me, that means there's not enough of a connection. Well, that's what I see.
No, I mean it's not that at all. I'm having the connection. The connection is coming later. I can talk to a woman and I can say, oh, she doesn't really meet all of the things that I want. I'm really glad that I didn't have we didn't connect emotionally, or I didn't lust after her because she has some double D's or something like that, and now my emotions are all over the place.
I think that's just what's normal for you. I don't think it works that way for me. And
another thing is, when you're clear-headed in a relationship, you can actually focus more on how you want your relationship to be and how you want to create the base for it. What's going to make it successful. I think if you're too emotionally involved in the situation, that kind of thinking can go right out the window. You're no longer trying to think what's the best for my relationship. You're thinking, what can I do to make so and so happy and things like that.
Yeah, I just think most relationships aren't that logical. I think it's like when somebody's in a bad relationship for themselves. If you're far enough in and you've been in it long enough, you're not thinking clearly anyway. Like, I think like once you're in it, at least for me, I'm not thinking clearly or logically. Even when you've like settled into it, you're still not, you can't step back. You're in it and you're probably not seeing it the way friends see it. Like, if you were in a relationship right now, I could give you my perspective, which would be completely different from yours because you're in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, maybe we just view it different. I don't think I can be that logical about a relationship, especially if I just met somebody, you know? Like when you can't really control that attraction. Like it's like a chemical reaction. And then, you start acting different and not thinking straight. But I don't know that you can control that.
Well, I mean, I think you can.
All right.
You know, by reasoning out, you know, like I almost called her 7 times, you know, maybe I shouldn't do that.
Yeah, but your brain's still working that way. I'm saying every time I've thought that way, that I was being reasonable and then I was being logical and thinking it through, 2 months later when I look back on it, I was like, man, you were acting crazy.
I know, and I think a lot of that is, you know, the more experience you have in relationships, the more you can catch, you know, the more you learn not to do things that are happening because of your emotions. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when you learn to do that, you can be more logical and reasoning about your relationships and not let your emotions overwhelm the beginning of your relationship. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, to a certain extent. Thanks for coming on. This is
thank you. I've had a blast.
Yeah, this is the first one. We'll see what comes of this, but this is a good start.
I think so too.
Yeah. All right. Well, good luck in China, and maybe you can come on in like a year.
I'm looking forward to it.
All right.
All right. See you then.
All right. Bye.
All right, bye.
Like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I have a couple more like this that I recorded from about a year ago that I may release in the future. Let me know what you think. And one more thing that I should mention. My friend that came on the show, I really appreciate him doing this with me. It was the first episode, but he wanted to remain anonymous. I think because some of his opinions were a little bit different as far as what is normal in China. So that's the reason I didn't introduce him, but he's one of my closest friends, and I really appreciate him coming on. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next week.